everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kendra Stray, Director of Communications at Hope Hospice. And today's presentation is about the 5 Wishes document, which is a unique type of advanced healthcare directive in that it covers certain considerations that other advanced directives do not. Additionally, 5 Wishes is written in everyday language that makes it easy for the average person to complete without the services of a lawyer. So let's dive into today's programs. Our presenters are Reverend Melissa Tumine, Hope's Supervisor of Spiritual Care, and Michelle Russell, one of our community liaisons and educators. Ladies.
Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm Melissa. Let me share my screen. And there we go. Okay. So welcome, everybody, on behalf of Hope Hospice. Here's some photos of us, I think from a long time ago. I've been with Hope 5 years this November. And Michelle, you've been with Hope?
I've been here almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years
almost
in
3
January.
years. Okay. So the agenda for today is as follows. We're going to go over something called the Go Wish game. I'll give you a little bit more information about that in a minute. Then we'll go over the 5 Wishes document, and wishes 3, 4, and 5 are the primary wishes that make the 5 Wishes document unique. Michelle will cover wishes 1, 2, and 3. I will wrap up wish 3 and then do 4 and 5. Then Michelle will go over the Advanced Healthcare Directive and the PULSE, which is a physician order life-sustaining treatment document, and a very beautiful pink, bright document. And then we'll do the 5 Wishes FAQ, and then we'll have a session for Q&A. So let me tell you a little bit real quick about the Go Wish game. It's like the Go Fish game. I don't know if you remember that as a youth, but you had a deck of cards and you would pull out a card. This is sort of based on that. There are 30 cards in the Go Wish game. Let me show you what the deck looks like. Can you see that there? That's the deck. So there are 30 cards in there. And the purpose of the game is to stimulate discussion that focuses on a positive way on values and wishes towards end of life. Each card has a short statement of things that people often cite are important to them. And so each card will be shown for about 3 to 5 seconds. And hopefully this will give you an easy way and maybe even entertaining way if you decide to purchase the Go Wish game. Not from us, from gowish.org. It may be an entertaining way to talk about some of the things that are most important to you. And we totally understand that the answers to these questions can change over time, but it's a good way to start a dialogue. So here we go. Take a deep breath with me. Relax. It'll take a couple minutes here to go through the cards. Let your shoulders drop, open your mind, open your heart, and just simply read the cards as they go through. before Michelle goes forward, let me just say a couple things real quick. The 5 wishes, the Go Wish game, again, is we are not affiliated with the Go Wish. We just want to let you know that. So when I said if you want to purchase it, we have that's completely up to you. We have no tie to that. And the same thing with the 5 wishes. They are, Michelle will go into a little history and more about it, but we are not affiliated either with the 5 Wishes organization or Aging with Dignity, who puts out that publication. We simply use it as a tool because we care about our community and we want to help educate our community. Okay, all yours, Michelle.
So good evening. So my name is Michelle Russell, and like I said, I've been with Hope Hospice for about almost 3 years. Prior to this, my background was a social worker in nursing homes. I did that for a very long time. And one of those responsibilities was to educate people about advanced directives. So not everyone knows about them. So Kendra's going to put up a poll, and we're going to see just how many people know about advanced directives, what the knowledge base is for that is. So go ahead and fill it out.
There's a couple people who are just using the phone to listen in, so I'm going to read what we're seeing on the screen. It's a multiple choice poll asking to let us know your level of awareness regarding advanced healthcare directives. So you've either never heard of it, you've heard of the term, but haven't sought education, or you do have an advanced directive on file with your doctor and gave copies to your family or representative. So for those of us who have answered the poll, it looks like at least everybody's heard the term, and this is surprising. A majority of people do have some form of advanced directive on file with their doctor, which is different from the previous presentation. But there's still a large number of you who maybe you've heard of it, but you haven't really sought education. So you're taking a great step.
So let's dive in. So there's okay. So what is exactly a 5 wishes? Well, as we know, it's an advanced directive. So let's go backtrack. What's an advanced directive? An advanced directive is a written statement of a person's wishes regarding medical treatment made to ensure those wishes are carried out should the person be unable to communicate with them to a doctor or others. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Again, a name is a written document. It's a legal document that names a person to be your agent to speak for you on your behalf, and if you can't speak for yourself. Usually allows to a couple other agents. That should be specific about what types of treatment you may want, or maybe perhaps don't want. But 5 wishes takes it like a few steps further. It's much more individualized, much more personalized. Addresses the person's emotional, spiritual, and personal wishes, which makes it different from a lot of the advanced directives. So it makes it unique. It's very holistic. So let's go over the history. So there was an attorney by the name of Jim Toohey, and he worked for Mother Teresa for many years. He also volunteered for her. And through his time with her, he saw a lot of suffering. And he was trying to figure out a way to help alleviate some of it anyway. So he saw the need for people to make plans for their future, so for their future healthcare. So he created the 5 wishes. And as we talked about earlier, this document is copyrighted, and we will let you know at the end of this presentation how to obtain your own copies. It's not that hard, and they're not expensive. So with the 5 wishes, this is what the first page looks like. It says 5 wishes, and the list of the 5 wishes actually are. The wish 1 is the person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't. Wish 2, the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. Wish 3, how comfortable I want to be. Wish 4, how I want people to treat me. And wish 5, how I want my loved ones to know, what I want my loved ones to know. And then a space to print your name and put in your date of birth. And this is the inside page. And again, it talks about what is 5 wishes and how it became, the history of it. But it also talks about why it's important. Um, any advanced directive, particularly the five wishes, is very important because it allows you the opportunity to be very specific about what you want, don't want, and make it known to others in case you can't speak for yourself. But it's also a gift to your family. And that may sound kind of strange, but it really is because it takes the guesswork out of things. You know, if someone hasn't had a discussion about something, what they wanted, and they end up in a position where maybe they need a feeding tube, and the family's torn because they've never discussed it with them. Well, do I want to? Does he want one? Does he not want one? And it can cause a lot of conflict within the family and a lot of grief. And all that can be alleviated by filling out an advance directive. It saves a lot of heartache because when you're in the process of losing someone, that's a very emotional and draining time and sad time, difficult time. And having to make those decisions on top of that makes it even more difficult. So you are really, truly giving your family a gift by filling out an advance directive. In the advance directive itself, anyone over the age of 18 should be filling one out. This isn't just for older people. This is for all of us. And the reason why I say that is situations arrive. We never know when we get up in the morning what's going to happen to us that day. And one of my responsibilities at Hope is sometimes to assist the admission nurses. I will go out ahead of time and fill out paperwork for them. So when they get there, they just concentrate on taking care of the patient. And about a year and a half ago, I was assisting one of our admission nurses. I was sitting down with the daughter, going over the paperwork, and she had a couple of friends there for more support to help her because it's a difficult decision. And we got talking about advance directives. And her friends were telling us a story about how they had some friends of theirs who had a son who went to college back east. Well, the son got sick and he wound up in the hospital. But the hospital didn't release any information to them because he didn't have an advance directive. And so there again is an example, really all of us, as long as we're 18 or older, should have one if at all possible. Okay, let's go. So the 5 wishes is accepted in most states, California being one of them. So this is the listing. And this is a listing of how, if you already have an advance directive, how you go about changing it to the 5 wishes. So let's start in on page 1, the first wish 1. The person I want to make healthcare decisions for me when I can't make them for myself. Okay. And there's the room again for who you change, the person you list as your agent, who you choose to be your decision maker for you when you can't for yourself. And then agent number 2 and 3, the 2 backups. And this discuss over here about who gives you tips on how to pick the right person, because you do have to think of it. It does take some thought processes to choosing that person because it's a very difficult position. So here's some things you should be considering when you're thinking about who you're going to pick for your agent. Okay, that person must be at least 18 years old. And along with that, pick someone you think not just age-wise, but just has the maturity to be able to cope and to really walk through these decisions that they need to be made. It cannot be someone who's your healthcare provider, cannot be an employee or a spouse of an employee of a healthcare provider, and it can't be someone who's serving as a proxy for 10 or more people. And the person should be someone who has a very clear understanding of what you want. I encourage you to, as you fill one of these out, sit down either before or after, you fill it out, sit down with that agent and go over the whole document with them, tell them how you feel about things, what your philosophy may be. So they know what your thought process is. They have a clear understanding of where you're coming from, because that will help them guide them down the line. And it should be someone who you can trust to carry out your wishes. It's one thing to know, for that person to know what you want. It's another thing for them to have the courage and the strength to be able to carry through those decisions. You maybe you put on there that you don't want a feeding tube, and you name someone you love very much, who loves you very much. Well, they may not be able to bring themselves to not do that. They may They may want that feeding tube because they're not ready to let you go. So you need to make sure it's somebody who's strong enough, has the courage to carry out what you want. And it's somebody who should be really available in the case of an emergency. Somebody who's relatively close by. When I first did my advanced directive, I chose people who live locally. My husband, obviously, and two very close friends of mine. One, because I've had discussions with all three of them. They know where I stand on things. They have a good idea of what I want and don't want, but they're all local. I'm originally from the Midwest, so that's where most of my family is. So if something were to happen in an emergency, it would take them a day to fly out here. So that's time is of the essence usually when something happens. And I also chose people, I didn't trust my parents. Somebody said, well, why didn't you? Well, first of all, I personally didn't want to put that burden on them, but also it's because of my mother. I wasn't sure if she would be able to carry out what I wanted should that come into place. So those are some things you should think about. Keep it to people who are local and strong enough to care what you need. Along with this, on page 5, it lists various powers that you're giving each agent. It has room for your specifics and direction what to do if you change your mind regarding your healthcare agent. So here it is. They have basically different scenarios, different situations. And if you don't agree with any of these, you don't want to give that power to that person, all you do is you simply cross it out, exit through. And then there's a space where you can be very specific about situations, things that you want or don't want, right there about your situation. And then there's the directions about if you change your mind on your agent, what to do. So wish number 2, my wish for the kind of medical treatment I want or don't want. Okay. And so there's things to keep in mind as a caregiver, life support, information, a space for specifics for you, and what to do in case of an emergency. Okay, so it goes through, it will explain what life support means to me, that's part of it, but also what to do in case of an emergency. And that addresses things like a do not resuscitate, CPR, and those things are addressed in what's called a post form, which we will discuss later. It enhances it and complements this document, and not everyone needs a post form, but we'll cover that later. Okay, so it goes through 4 different scenarios on the next page. Someone who's close to death, someone who may be in a coma and not expected to wake up or recover, permanent or severe brain damage, not expected to recover, or any other condition which I do not wish to be kept alive. And with that, they give 3 options. The first option is I want to have life support treatment. Second option, I do not want life support treatment. If it has been started, I want it stopped. And the third option is I want to have life support treatment if my doctor believes it could help. But I want my doctor to stop giving me life support treatment if it is not helping my health conditions or symptoms. Okay, so you choose whichever option is most prevalent for you, what's most appropriate for you, you just choose that one, you just X that box. And again, there's room if you want to make additional notes. And then approaches wish 3 and wish 4. Wish 3 is my wish for how comfortable I want to be. And this addresses the issues of pain, okay, and other symptoms. And again, it goes through and it'll let you cross out anything you want or don't agree with. And at this point, I will turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you go back to the image of wish 3?
Yes, I am. So there it is, page 3.
So I know it's hard to see, and this is especially when Kendra had mentioned if you go up to the view options, you can change the ratio to be larger if you want to be able to see that. Also want to just remind people that we are recording this, and so that will be available shortly after on our website, maybe a couple days afterwards. And also available there will be this PowerPoint presentation and the FAQ that we'll go over at the end. So one thing I want to mention here about wish number 3 is, our culture's good about pain or curing, but we're not so good about caring. And so this is part of why Jim Toey put this document in place after working with Mother Teresa. And wish number 3 really is about physical pain. So I just want to give a couple examples as a point of reference for people. So the first bullet on the right-hand side, I'll read it for you. It says, I wish to be, it's first bullet on the right-hand side under wish 3. I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as I can be. Now that's pretty specific. You know, maybe somebody who enjoys touch and has maybe enjoyed receiving massages may want to receive that towards the end of their life because they find it comforting. The flip side of that is I've known people who don't want to be touched and may have never gone to get a massage or had any warm oils put upon them. So this is something that you would want to X out. The bullet underneath that is, I wish to have my favorite music played when possible until my time of death. You know, I have an example of somebody who enjoyed the opera. And most people think, and it's okay, that if we put kind of soft, easy listening music, it's comforting. And most often it is comforting. However, even more comforting than that is something that the person really, really has enjoyed in their lifetime. And so playing opera music on a CD for one of our patients, they found that very, very comforting. One other example, which is on the 4th bullet down, it says, I wish to have religious readings and well-loved poems read aloud and when I'm near death. Well, perhaps you're not religious, so you definitely want to X that out. Perhaps you don't like poems. You want to X that out. However, perhaps you liked, and we had somebody like this, who really enjoyed, remember those Nancy Drew mysteries? But we would read, I remember reading them when I was young, and this patient really, really enjoyed the Nancy Drew mysteries, and I know I read them to her, and she found great comfort in it. So that is something that, as Michelle mentioned earlier, if there's something not on this document, you can write it down on a piece of paper and attach it to the 5 wishes, and it becomes part of the legal document. So that's wish 3. Wish 4 really is about giving us control. It's about how we want our God-given dignity to be maintained. It's a chance to say what really matters to us. So let's go over that a little bit of wish 4.
Can we move it?
Sure. Oops.
Oh.
There we go. My wish for what I want my loved ones, how to treat me.
Yeah.
I think one more back. Yeah.
That's wish 4. We wish for how I want people to treat me.
Okay, so let me just read a couple of the, since they're hard to see on the screen, let me read a couple of the bullet points on there. One of them is, I wish to have people with me when possible. I want someone to be with me when it seems that death may come at any time. Most, you know, and this is really hard during COVID times, there's no doubt, right? We're all shelter in place. There are restrictions out there for all of our safety. So that becomes really difficult for when somebody wants somebody to be with them. But I raised this because not everybody wants to have somebody with them. Sometimes family members want to be there, but the patient themselves doesn't want anyone. And so I had an experience where there was a family and the patient was a late middle-aged woman, and she had her husband and her son there, and they wanted to be there on her last breath. This is when I was training in the hospital, clinical pastoral education. And so, you know, we're with her for hours on end. And, you know, the son says, you know, Dad, I think Mom may want to be by herself. Let's go get something to eat. And wouldn't you know, they went downstairs to the cafeteria, got something to eat. I remained there at the patient's bedside, and she passed without them around. So this is an example. If that is how you are, perfect. If that's not how you're not, perfect. However, you know, it's whatever your wishes are. This is an opportunity for you to specify that. Another bullet on here for another example says, I wish to have the members of my faith community told that I am sick and asked to pray for me and visit me. So this is not an automatic either. Someone may be attached to a church, but their spiritual community may be the people that they golf with, that they spend their leisurely hours with, that they sit around and talk. Or maybe it's perhaps somebody that's part of their knitting group or their weaving group or their choir group, right? So it's not necessarily somebody from church. If it is, you can circle it, or from your faith community, whether it's a temple or a synagogue. The main point is you get to specify who you want with you to support you during this time. And that's as easy as circling, Xing it out, or adding another comment. Oh, I just want to mention one other thing here. I have one other note here about wish for, which is I had a male patient who, according to his cultural customs, only wanted his family present pre and post death, right? And so not all of us are trained or knowledgeable in different types of faith traditions or even just cultural practices. And so if you have a specific cultural practice that is important to you and you want your healthcare team to abide and follow by that, this is a way to let them know. Okay, wish 5. I think, Kendra, we're going to do a little poll for wish 5. So here's the question for the poll. It says, indicate how much consideration you have given to your own memorial service or other type of celebration of life. There's multiple choice. The first one is, I haven't thought about it. The second one is, I have pondered the basics, but have not written down my desires. And the third one is, I have specific wishes, such as poems or songs I want performed, and I've recorded these requests in my important documents. So if you could just answer one of those and submit them, and Kendra will let us know how we stand today.
Yeah, I'll just give another 10 seconds or so for people to finish writing their answer.
Wow.
Oh, very good. So 5% say they haven't thought about it. 14% say I have specific wishes, such as poems, etc., that are recorded. And a high majority of us, 82%, say I have pondered the basics, but have not written down my desires. So wish 5 really is the soul and heart of the 5 wishes. And it talks about what I want my loved ones to know, and it's really about communication. And this wish by itself is what makes the 5 wishes a unique document. So, there are 5 essential things to say to people at end of life. Those are, please forgive me, I forgive you, I love you, thank you, and a form of goodbye or until we meet again. Now, the reason I mention that is because the first 2 or 3 bullets on the left-hand side address those first 2, please forgive me and I forgive you. So the first bullet says, I want my family to know I love them. But the second and third bullets say, I wish to be forgiven for the times that I've hurt my family, friends, and others. And the third bullet says, I wish to have my family, friends, and others know that I forgive them for when they may have hurt me. Forgiveness is it could be tough. It could be a tough thing. No one wants to relive any difficult situation. And it's not easy to ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness has no theological, meaning no religion has its capture on it. It's a human condition. I think the best example that I can give is from my own family. So my mom had cancer. She was dying of cancer and she was on hospice. And my dad's sister, so her sister-in-law, my parents were married for 50 years. 40 of those years, they got along great. Moving from the Philippines here, got along great. Did a bunch of family things with our families. And And then at some family event, something was said between my mom and her sister-in-law. I don't know what it was, but all I know is that resulted in 10 years of them not being close. Okay. And that's sad if you think about it. That's really just sad when you're close, and then we harden our hearts over something said to us. Well, when my mom got on hospice, she wanted to clean her heart, right? And so she asked my aunt to come over, and I got to witness my mom in the last 6 months of her life asking for forgiveness to my aunt, and they got to spend the last days, weeks, months, together. But it's just a story of how quickly, if we choose, we can let go and just ask for forgiveness and offer forgiveness to somebody. They didn't rehash all the details, so I still don't know what the details are, and that really doesn't matter. What matters is they had forgiven each other, and they both restored their relationship before my mom died. So that's something here that's maybe this can act as a bullet point or conversation point with your family if that applies to you. Another one, the 5th bullet down there, says, I wish for all my family members to make peace with each other before my death if they can. So I like to give examples so that people can have a frame of reference. And I actually had a patient who she was in her in her 70s, I think. And she had 2 daughters, adult daughters, obviously, and they were really, really close for a long time. And about 3 to 4 years prior to when I got involved in this case, there was a sort of rift that happened between the 2 daughters. And suddenly the 2 daughters that were best friends talked about everything, went to each other for advice. Something happened, misunderstanding, boom, they're not close anymore. And I raised this because this was the biggest spiritual pain for this person, for this lady. She wanted more than anything else, right, before she took her last breath, for her daughters to get along. And I think all parents want their children to get along. And so she did not have an advanced healthcare directive or the 5 wishes. However, what she did do was write a letter and asked me to read it to her children. She had two girls and a boy, and the son was sandwiched between the 2 girls. But she asked me to read a letter to them, asking them to get along, right? Because they were now going to be their legacy. Their father was gone too. So I just raised this as a point that, think about what will bring you peace. Think about using this document as a way to document that. There's no time like the present to make peace in our hearts and wish that for our families. I'm going to go to the top bullet on the right, the first one that says, I wish for my family and friends and caregivers to respect my wishes, even if they don't agree with them. So this is a little bit to what Michelle was talking about in terms of who you select to be your voice when you can no longer speak your desires. And the story I want to give around here is somebody that, again, that I had worked with. And this person had lived in a facility, an older facility, assisted living facility. And she was in the independent part. And in the independent part, she was allowed to have a dog. And she had her little dog named Charlie. And as long as the dog stayed in her apartment, everybody was fine. Well, 10 years prior to that, her husband had died. And then that's when she got the dog. And the dog's name, she called her, instead of husband, her firstband, and she called him Charlie Bear. And so when it was getting close to the end, her children wanted to remove the dog from her room because they just didn't know if it was appropriate. And I advocated because I knew what her wishes were, but my point is you can write this into your 5 wishes. I advocated for the dog to be with her because the dog was her companion for at least 10 years and was that warm sense of being. And so Charlie Bear was with her until the end. So I just want to bring that up. So now if we look at the part here where there are these blank lines, I just want to read a couple of them here. People people need to be heard, validated, and loved, right? I think that's all of us as humans. And this first set of lines here says, if anyone asks how I want to be remembered, please say the following. And so this is, there's only 3 lines here. And so I'm sure if we fill it out, that, we'll add extra pages. But this is really a chance for you or your beloved, whoever's filling this out, to literally script how you want to be remembered. I know that my mom made all her wishes known before she died, and my brother and I were simply able to execute to those. And the effect on us was we were able to grieve my parents instead of having to make all these decisions when she died. Another example is I have somebody who had, in her early stage of dementia, she was astute enough to write down everything. She had a binder, and she wrote down everything that she wanted for her end of life. She had picked out songs, she had picked out scripture, she had written her obituary, she even had a check there, and the children didn't know this until towards the end. And so in talking to the daughter and son, they were also relieved because they just didn't have to worry anything, and they just knew that if they followed what their mom wanted, that they could be at peace. So you would write those things if interested in that section there. And then on the bottom, the last set of lines there is really about any other wishes, anything that you find important to you for closure. You would write it in the very bottom. Sometimes with new generations, old traditions are not passed on, and yet they may be important to you to be followed. So that would be a place perhaps to write those things out. Okay, all yours, Michelle. Thank you.
Yay. So now we come to the important part of signing the document. Because it is a legal document, it needs to be witnessed or notarized. In California, you don't need it. Doesn't need to be notarized, just needs to be witnesses. So there's a space for your signature, place for both of the witnesses when they sign. And there's some things to keep in mind with the signing for the witnesses. It must be signed in front of 2 witnesses. And as my background, the thing that most people may not be aware of, if someone is in a nursing home and they decide they want to do an advance directive, one of those witnesses has to be the ombudsman. That's the law. It's meant that way to make sure the person who's filling out is competent, has the capacity to make these decisions and fill this out, but also to make sure there's no duress going on. So if someone's in a nursing home and they want to fill out an advance directive of any kind, 5 wishes or whatever, I recommend that they reach out to the social worker and have that social worker have him or her call and make an appointment for the ombudsman to come out to be one of the witnesses, because otherwise it won't be valid. And that's just a law for that one. Other thing to keep in mind for witnesses, they cannot be under 18 years old. They can't be any of the agents that you've listed under your 5 wishes. It can't be a healthcare provider or an employee of a healthcare provider. When I worked in skilled nursing, in a nursing home, that none of us working there, none of the employees could ever witness anything. It was seen as a conflict of interest, which it kind of is. It can't be anyone who's financially responsible for your care or your health care. Can't be an employee of a life or health insurance provider for you. Can't relate by blood, marriage, or adoption. Cannot be a credit of yours or entitled to any part of your estate under a will, codicil, or operation of law. And like you said, California does not require the 5 wishes to be notarized. So that takes part of the witness part. So you're finished. You've got a witness, it's all ready to go. What do you do next? And this is kind of some information that tells you this, and this is the wallet card. So let's review this. This is where you are allowed to make copies. You're not allowed to make blank copies, but once it's filled out and signed, then you're allowed to give as many copies as you want. First person that you should give it to is your physician for obvious reasons, and as well as all 3 of the agents that you named in that document. And sit down with all those, your physician and with the agents, again, to review the document with them so they know where you stand and what you want. They have a clear understanding. And then give it out to anyone else who you feel would be appropriate to have a copy. Maybe you've got a large family and you name 2 of your children as part of your agents. Well, then if you have other children, I would suggest you give every one of those children a copy. That way everyone is on the same page and avoids conflicts and confusion. Next thing is to keep the original in a safe place, but it's easily accessible, not the safety deposit box, because that's what my parents did. They had the foresight a long time ago to fill out an advance directive and promptly put it in their safety deposit box. And I explained to my mother, well, that's not going to do anybody good if we can't get access to it. They had named each other first, then myself, then my sister. And I explained to her, if the 2 of you get in an accident, how are we supposed to get access to it in the safety deposit box? So after some nudging, she gave copies to my sister and I, so we have them as well. What I would suggest is keep it in a safe place in your house, someplace that's not so safe that you forget where you put it. One suggestion is a binder. I think Melissa's talked about that before. When I worked in skilled nursing, I would see some families that come in and they were very organized, and they would have a binder, and it would include the living will, the advance directive, the post form that was pertinent, their funeral arrangements, their actual will, all of that in one place. That way, when the time came, everything was there in one spot. It was easy. And again, you're giving your family a gift because you're relieving all that burden of having to make a bunch of decisions because it's already finished. In the 5 wishes, you'll have what's called a wallet card. And on that piece of paper, it lists in a place for A, to let them know that you have an advance directive, B, who is your agent, the person that you named to be that agent, and then the third thing is where is the original copy at? So yes, I have an advance directive, here's my agent, here's where it's at. That way you can keep it in your wallet or your purse in case there's an emergency, so whomever can fill it out and know where everything is at. My mouse is not behaving itself. Okay, so to get the blank copies, we don't, like I said, we don't have any affiliation with 5 wishes, but we're a believer in the document. That's why we're doing this today. So you have 2 options. You can call 888-5-WISHES, which is 888-594-7437, 888-594-7437, or simply go to their website, which is 5wishes.org. And that will, you can buy them in bulk. You get a break for that, but they're not very expensive at all. I think maybe, $5, I think someone said. They're very inexpensive. So let's move on to the post form. Okay, the post form is different. Whereas the advance directive 5 wishes addresses more long-term healthcare issues, the post form addresses emergency situations. If something happens suddenly, if somebody falls to the ground and stops breathing, what do they want done? Now, the post form is not meant for everyone. If you're young and you're healthy, there's no reason for you to fill out a post. This is more meant for people who maybe have a chronic or life-threatening illness, or maybe getting up there quite a bit in years. Then those are the people who would want to fill a post for. Somebody like me who's like 55 in relatively good health, there's no need to fill one out. So I just want to make that clear. Not everyone needs to do this. So what is the post form? Post form is 2 pages. So there's the front page, and it has 4 sections, which we'll review. There's the back page. Okay, so the post form is for life orders for life-sustaining treatment. Okay, in advanced emergency measures, it's not the same as an advance directive. It complements the other one. The original must be in that lovely shade of pink. I believe the actual term is pulsar pink. I call it pepto-bismol pink because that's what it reminds me of. The original must be in pink, but you can make black and white copies, so those are acceptable as well. And it must be signed by the physician to be effective, because it truly is a physician's order, a doctor's order, once it's signed by him or her. So there's 4 sections, and section A addresses cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. And there's simply 2 options. Yes, attempt resuscitation, I want CPR, or no, do not attempt resuscitation, DNR, do not resuscitate. If you choose attempt resuscitation, that specify that you do want CPR in Section A. In Section B, which we'll go over in a minute, it will make you fill out full treatment in that section. So let's go to Section B. So Section B addresses medical interventions. The first one being full treatment, the primary goal of prolonging life by all medically effective means. So if you pick CPR in Section A, you have to pick full treatment in Section B. The other option, selective treatment, the goal of treating medical conditions while avoiding burdensome measures. That means if you need an antibiotic for an infection, that's fine, but it doesn't mean you want anything aggressive like maybe chemotherapy or radiation or something like that. Just treat what you can without getting too aggressive. The third one is comfort-focused treatment, primary goal of maximizing comfort. And that's what it means, it's comfort-focused only. It means do what you can to keep me as pain-free as possible. And that's my primary goal. I don't want anything else. The next section, Section C, addresses artificially administered nutrition. And there's 3 options. Number 1 is yes, you want long-term artificial nutrition, which includes feeding tubes. The next option is trial period of artificial nutrition, including feeding tubes. Or option number 3, no artificial means of nutrition, including feeding tubes. So it means either yes, I want feeding tubes, no, I don't want feeding tubes, or I want to try, let's try it, do a trial period of feeding tubes and see what happens. Those are the 3 options. And then in Section D is the information and signatures. This is where the physician, whomever he or she discussed the form with, does that person have capacity? Are they, and if they don't, who is the legally recognized decision maker? And then there's this part where it says, we'll even ask, who is the advance directive? Is there an advance directive? Is it available for review? And if so, who is the agent? And then the place for the physician's signature. And then there's a section for the signature of the patient, if they're filling it out for themselves, or their legalized recognized decision maker. So for example, say you've got someone who is in the later stages of dementia, but they had the foresight to do an advance directive of 5 wishes long before this. Whoever they named as that first agent could, in their behalf, at this point, when they're not able to fill out the decision maker, or not filled out the document anymore, sign for them. So it's either the person themselves or their agent that can sign it. And then the next section is just the contact information, the mailing address or the phone number of the decision maker. And then there's the back page. When I worked in nursing homes, I filled out a lot of post forms. And sometimes when I wasn't there, some of the nurses would do it. Some were pretty good about filling out the back page, but not everyone was. And there's significance to it because it gives information about the patient, again, the person it's covering, but it also has a place for the secondary backup person. So for example, if you're filling it out for yourself, you would name the agent you named first on your 5 wishes. If it's the agent that's filling it out, then the second agent could be put in the back. The point is that back page covers the backup person, because you should always have a backup plan, a backup person. Okay, so when I worked in skilled, when I worked in nursing homes, I used to tell people pink follows the person. That document, once it's filled out and signed by the physician and yourself, it's yours. And when I would have people come in for therapy, they would come in maybe for occupational physical therapy. And then when they were getting ready to go home, what I would do is I would take that post form and I would make a copy for our records to have in hand. And they would put the original in with their discharge paperwork. So they would take it home with them because it's theirs, it's portable. And I would explain to them, once you get home, to make sure you placed it in one of 2 places, either on the refrigerator or above your bed. Because if for some reason someone calls 911 and the paramedics come, those are the first 2 places they'll look, either above the bed or on the refrigerator. So it makes the job easier and makes sure that your wishes are being filled out again. I also recommend that if you're hospitalized or maybe you need to go to the nursing home for therapy, take copies of your 5 wishes. And if you have a post form, copies of that too with you. That way they have copies for their records, and it will make their job a much easier. They will be happy that now that you did it, they'll appreciate it. And that way, again, you're making your wishes known very clearly. So if something happens in the hospital, they know exactly what your wishes are and will follow them through. And as far as a blank post form, those can be obtained from your physician's office. So if you're in that category where you think it might be time for you to fill out a post form, contact your doctor's office and maybe make an appointment or however they want to do it, and go through the form with your doctor and sign it then. Okay. And I will turn this back over to Melissa.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. There we go. So real quick before we go through the FAQ, again, wish number 1 has to do with who makes healthcare decisions for me. That's your durable power of attorney for healthcare. Wish number 2 is what medical treatment do I want or not want? And that relates to your living will and pulsed. Wish number 3 is how to bring me comfort, and that has to do with physical pain. Wish 4, how do I want to be treated? That's about dignity and support and spiritual pain. And wish 5 is really about communication, what I want you to know. So these are the FAQ from the 5 wishes. So what's the relationship between us, our 5 wishes, and Aging with Dignity? Aging with Dignity is the nonprofit that Michelle had talked about that had that was set up with Jim Toey, and 5 Wishes is one of their publications. What's the relationship between Hope and Aging with Dignity? Nothing. No relationship other than we believe in this tool to help educate you. We care about our community. And so we offer this as a service to our communities. And we thank you for being here. Who should fill out the 5 wishes? Anybody that's 18 years or older, so they have to be at least that's a legal requirement. If you are married, each person must fill one out, so you cannot do a joint one. They're very thoughtful in putting this document together because they have instructions on all sorts of things, such as signing and witnessing. So it's a pretty thorough and easy to follow document. So what do I do if I already have a living will? Well, you can change the 5 wishes. And again, they have a section in there, how do I change the 5 wishes? Follow that instruction, sign and witness it. And then when you're done with it, you need to make a copy of it because it's your new legal tool, legal document, right? And so you need to give it to your doctor and whomever else you've distributed your other important documents. What if I don't live in a 5 wishes state? As Michelle mentioned, 42 states are covered with the 5 wishes. If you move to one of those that is not covered, then you need to get your state required form and then take out your 5 wishes and you can attach it to your state required. And then again, give it to your health provider and those that are important to you. One thing to make sure is do not contradict what you wrote in your state form. So for example, say in your 5 wishes, you say, I do not resuscitate me. Then you have to make sure in your state form, you select that same thing that says, do not resuscitate me. The problem becomes when they are not in sync. And in this case, I believe the state required form would take precedence because you would be outside of 5 wishes state. Wish 2 tracks to most living wills, and wish 1 tracks to the durable power of attorney for healthcare forms, advance directive. What if I live outside the United States? Great question. Most countries don't have advanced healthcare planning in the law. So the document would not be legal out of the country. However, the value that it brings in filling it out and letting your family know what your wishes are and how you want to be treated remains as still being very, very valuable. What if I move to a different state? Same thing, right? If you move to a state that's not 5 wishes, fill out the state form. If you move within the 42 states, then you're good to go. You don't need to refill out anything. I think I just said that. Okay. Can I change my 5 wishes? Absolutely. One of the main things to do is make the change, but write revoke across the front of the old one so that people know that that's no longer valid. Or better yet, if you want to destroy it. So it's strictly up to you if or when you want to update your form. And always the latest dated form that is legal is the one that is abiding. May I make copies of 5 wishes? Michelle kind of alluded to this. And again, this is a 5 wishes requirement. And they say, yes, you can make copies of the completed form. They do not give permission to photocopy the blank form because it is copyrighted. And just as many healthcare institutions, physicians, hospitals are used to looking for the pulsed form, they're now getting used to looking for the 5 wishes, the original form in blue. And I went up on the website today and got the latest statistics, and it says that the 5 wishes has been distributed to 40,000 organizations in the US, and it's reached over 30 million individuals. So it's becoming more and more recognizable and used. It's a great document. Oops, each person should fill out, sorry about that, should fill out and sign one original form. How do I start a conversation about 5 wishes? Great question. I agree with what the 5 wishes say on this, which is, you know, if you go through it yourself, then you're probably asking questions that are important to you, and then you're seeking answers, and you have answers for that. So once you go through that yourself, you become the best way to start a conversation because you have already experienced that. But I also want to tell you of a couple other resources up on the 5 wishes. Is they have a couple free downloads, right? So you don't have to even buy it, but buy the document, but a few free downloads on ways for you to talk about your wishes with your friends and family. So if you just go up to 5wishes.org, you'll see that there. Michelle mentioned in wish number 2 that there are 3 options, and usually there's only 2, right? There's usually yes, I want life support, or no, I don't. But the 5 wishes added this 3rd one. And the reason they did that is because it perhaps gives you, in a few words, what you're thinking, right? I want it if my doctor thinks it could help, right? So the main thing here, though, is pick the one that reflects your wishes. Are there other 5 wishes resources? Yes, they've got next steps. So it's a guide. If you're coping with a serious illness, it helps you walk through next steps in the wishes. And then they have something here for children, which I think is called great, which is called My Wishes. It's also, the document has been translated into 20 languages and including Braille. So way to go. Thank you for showing up, you know, and having the courage. The word courage, the root of the word is heart. So thank you for taking heart and having the courage to come here and just even listen to this presentation, to sit through the Go Wish and those questions in the beginning, and then just to be open, right, to what the 5 wishes can offer you in terms of having a voice, having your agency. I also want to say, and Michelle alluded to this, you know, as long as somebody is 18 years or older, they can fill out this document. So it's not only for those that perhaps are facing the end of life or have a terminal diagnosis or whatnot. It's really for any of us. Michelle alluded to, and especially today with the pandemic, you know, anything can happen at any time. And so with that lens, this document really gives you your agency, your voice to share with your family your wishes. And also, if your family members or friends fill it out, you get to be the recipient of being there to support them. Okay, Thank you, everybody. Let me unshare, and then Kendra will moderate our questions.
Yeah, so just a reminder to everyone, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A widget, and that's where you can type in your questions to the panelists, and we'll be combining some of them that may be covered in different ways, but we'll get to as many as we can. Let's start with a clarification of terms. I'm not sure which one of you wants to take this one, but we've been using the terms durable power of attorney, proxy, and agent kind of interchangeably. And so we just wanted some confirmation that we're all talking about the same thing.
Advanced directive is the overall category. Proxy is the agent. That's the person named on the advanced directive to be the speaker for you. And what was the last part of it?
Well, durable power of attorney, proxy, and healthcare agent.
So durable power of attorney, that's, there are two, advanced directive is the overall umbrella category. Within that, there are two types of advanced directives. One is durable power of attorney for healthcare, and the other one is living will. That's kind of what Melissa was kind of alluding to. And they're similar, but they address different things. Whereas 5 Wishes kind of combines all that under the category of one document. That's part of the beauty of it.
Back when you were talking about having witnesses with your signature to validate the document, what are, if any, the legal requirements for somebody to be a witness to sign your 5 Wishes?
We went through again, they have to be at least 18, and they can't be related to you by blood, marriage, adoption, anything like that. They can't be anyone affiliated with any kind of your health care at all. Your doctor's office, a facility that you're getting treatment at, cannot, hospital, it can't be anyone that could benefit from maybe your financial will or whatever, or anyone who's paying for your health insurance. Anything where it could be conceived as a conflict of interest, essentially.
Okay. And earlier you were talking about when you're choosing your healthcare proxy that, sorry, I'm reading and talking at the same time.
Okay.
Does the witness have to be local, or can it be somebody who does not live in your area?
They need to be present. That's the whole point. So when you're filling that out and you're signing it, your witnesses have to be physically in the same place as you. They have to be physically present. That's the point. It's a witness.
But if it were a close friend who lived in a neighboring state, they flew or drove in to sign for you, but they physically reside in a different area, is that something you would advise against?
It doesn't matter where the witness lives, as long as they are with you when you sign that document, then you're good to go. The witnesses have to be present, because what they're witnessing is the fact that you physically signed that document yourself.
Okay, and then a clarification on the first question. When you're trying to determine a witness to sign for you, and they meet all of those legal requirements that you mentioned, as they're not related to you, they're not part of your healthcare team, but are there any special considerations that somebody should have? Like, can it just be someone on the street, or do you recommend it having to be somebody who's closer to you?
It would be better to have someone that you know personally. I wouldn't just pick someone off the street. I know, going back to my social work days, we had someone fill in an advance directive, and again, I got the ombudsman in, and he came in to be as one of the witnesses, and we got the spouse of one of our other residents who was there every single day and knew this other patient, and so she served as a witness for them because they already had a connection. It should be someone that you have some some knowledge of.
Okay.
I wouldn't just pick somebody off the street. You want somebody that can, something that you know that could testify on your behalf, so to speak.
Okay.
So should there be some conflict of interest later, some questionable? Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Michelle. Plus, preferably somebody who you trust.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the main thing. Somebody you know,
Trust.
somebody you trust. That's a big thing.
So we talked about how to get a hold of a copy of the 5 wishes, and that is to order them online from 5wishes.org. That's the website. But is there a format where they can fill it out online instead of having to order a hard copy?
Sure. So on pricing real quick, if I remember correctly, if you order one document, it's $5. But if you order 25 documents, it's $25, right? And so the obviously then it drops down to $1 a piece. Great intentions that maybe you pass it to your neighbors, families, or a friend. So there is an online option, which is semi-new for them. You can sign up online and you enter sort of their portal. And in that, they take you through the 5 wishes. They ask you, you know, your birthday and other important things. And you will, once you sign up, you will have 1 year from the date of sign up to fill out the document. So you can fill it out, make some changes, or you can say, I filled it out, I'm done, complete. And then from there, they print out in a PDF format. So what happens, and I tried this is what I know, is I went online and I signed up, and when you enter your name, so you want to give your full name, they automatically print that and your birth date on the front of the document, number 1.
Oh, cool.
And then there are other places within the document, like where you put your name, like I, Melissa Tumanang, want, you know, it's a signing. I, Melissa Tumanang, ask that my family, my doctors, etc., and the signing of the wishes. And so they automatically populate your name into there too, right? So all the places where your name as the person filling out the document, all those places are automatically filled out. And again, it didn't, no, I can't remember if it cost me $5 to join, but you can do this online also.
I mean, they are a nonprofit, and they're doing this to because they have a goal. They want to make the world a better place by having these documents filled out. So that's, I think, part of the reason why they are relatively expensive. I mean, if you were to go to an attorney and have an advance directive fill out, that would cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple questions going back to the post form.
Okay.
How do I learn about all of the scenarios to consider on the post?
Well, that's why I suggest, I mean, the place most common place to get a post form, if you're not already like at a nursing home or someplace like that, is either the hospital, but contact your physician. So I would just suggest contact your physician, sit down with him or her, and review it together, because they're going to know your medical condition. They're going to be able to explain any questions you may have. And that way you can fill it out to the best of your ability of how you're feeling with your circumstances. So I would say refer them back to their physician. The physician has the forms and they can review it with them and help them fill it out.
Okay. We talked about earlier about choosing your healthcare proxy, and I guess could you just go over that section again where you have tips on how to go about choosing somebody to be your healthcare agent?
It should be somebody who's at least 18 years old. They have to be legally 18 years old. Make sure it's someone who has some maturity, that they can handle the responsibility should it happen. Pick someone who understands and knows what your wishes are, that you can trust, that will have the courage to fulfill those wishes should they come to fruition. And somebody who's local, who is easily accessible. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the Bay Area, but maybe a couple hours drive someplace is that if there is an emergency, they're able to get here in a reasonable amount of time. And like I said, with my family, they're all back in Iowa, so it would take 2 plane rides to get here. So that's not quick. And most important thing is, I think, trust. Making sure the person has a clear understanding of what you want, easily accessible, and to make sure that they have a clear understanding again of what you want.
Okay.
Let me just, a couple other things that Michelle had highlighted too was it can't be your healthcare provider, anybody
Right.
interested in your healthcare, including an employer or spouse of a healthcare provider. Again, it's to avoid conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
Okay, new question here. If you already have a health directive with a trust and or will, and then you want to switch to the 5 wishes form, do you have to take any steps, or does it just automatically rule out the first one and you just go with the most recent document? Since the 5 wishes, once witnessed and signed, becomes a legal document, does that nullify the first health directive that they have?
If I understand the question correctly, yes. The answer is yes. So if I understand they have a will, in their will, they have not only their finances, but their healthcare instructions. Then they fill out the 5 wishes. They get it notarized. It's legal. It's dated later than the portion of the healthcare in their will. Then the 5 wishes becomes the legal document.
But I think what would also be important to stress is that whoever are the important people in the family and the personal physician, make sure that they are informed that there's a newer document, that they have the appropriate copies.
Yes.
Because you may have an incident where there's, the one leader of the family not being informed of this new document, and they're looking at a document that's now outdated.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page and has a clear understanding, because that can create a lot of conflict and unnecessary stress. So I agree. Yes. Make sure if you do that, make sure everybody important has a copy.
And if for some reason somebody didn't want to use the 5 wishes document, are there other types of advanced directives? Do you know of the names of such documents? Where would they go about finding alternatives to 5 wishes?
Well, there's a living will, which we mentioned, or direct power of attorney for healthcare. You could talk to your attorney. Trying to think. Research on, I think I'm online, there might be. I know when I first did mine, I actually got it from my hospital. I had to go in for a procedure, and they gave me a link, and I filled it out. I know there's. You have any suggestions, Melissa?
Well, I'm not aware of any, and I know that the importance of 5 wishes is really to get your voice out there and have your dignity and whatnot. And I know that it is expensive to get a will and go change it.
Yes.
So the question might be, how else can I employ what the 5 wishes is, especially wish 3, 4, and 5, right? How else can I employ that? I mean, of course, 5 wishes prefers that you use the 5 wishes document, right? There's no reason that you cannot purchase a 5 wishes document and use that as some sort of supplemental thing that you append to your own other documents. Use it as a guide. We've had that question before.
Okay. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and I have a couple more pieces of information before you sign off. First, as we mentioned, I will make a recording of today's webinar available along with the presentation slides that you can download. You can go to hopehospice.com/town hall. So if you'd like to support us at Hope, Please consider giving a donation of any amount at hopehospice.com/donate. Thank you very much for tuning in and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.